During the 70s and the rise of hippie culture, a festival called Stonehenge Free Festival took place. This festival took place between 1972 and 1984, until being stopped by the High Court, as they were openly selling illegal drugs and leaving behind much litter, as well as some seeing it as disrespectful to the site. Many of these festival goers were travellers and gypsies who travelled around the United Kingdom partying. Many bands would also play here, similar to other hippie festivals at the time. The police tried many times to stop this festival taking place, however people would just ignore the police and carry on partying. But in 1985 the police decided to put their foot down. The police blockaded the site to disallow for New Age travellers to attend, which led to a violent confrontation known today as the Battle of the Beanfield. There was a convoy of around 150 vehicles loaded with these New Age travellers in 1985, most of them men. Police helicopters caught sight of them right away and trailed them to the site. The police were not legally allowed to hold the convoy until they had reached the blockade. Many working class holiday makers had their holidays interrupted by the police blockade and were forced to turn back. The police claim that the convoy attempted to bash their way through the blockade, however the travellers dispute this. The convoy, now stopped by the blockade, decided to go off-road across the field. They destroyed, vandalised and cut down many fences owned by private farmers, and the police began to arrest them. This took place over several hours. Both police cars and hippie vans were smashed, with travellers allegedly beginning to throw petrol bombs at police, which is when the police called for local reinforcements. It should be noted that the use of petrol bombs is still unproven. There were around 1,300 police and 600 travellers. The travellers claim that the police started clubbing anything they could hit, including pregnant women and children, however this is also unproven. The travellers carried on through the fields, with police following them on foot and ordering them to stop and get out of the vehicles. The large hippie vans were moving at a crawl because of the muddy fields. To attempt to stop more violence, the police did not attempt to forcibly stop the vehicles. However, they were armed with riot shields and pepper spray that was used on the travellers if they attempted to run away. As always, some police acted less professional than others when making these arrests. As the day went on, the vans continued to roam across the fields, and the police began to forcibly stop them, smashing windows and forcibly entering them once they'd crashed, sunken in the mud, or ran out of fuel. As the police went on, the police got more and more agitated and violent, with some of the travellers getting beaten on the floor as they were arrested. A few of the festival goers also began throwing bricks at the police. The festival goers then attempted to flee through the beanfields. However, most of their vehicles were now stranded in the fields. Those who remained didn't want to leave the site due to their vehicles being their homes, and they wanted to stick together to avoid being arrested and split up. Many also claimed to be injured, but refused to go to hospital for the same reasons. The police would not allow them to leave the site and needed to arrest them. In reality, only a few dozen of the travellers were injured, with as few as 16 going to hospital, while there were 8 police who themselves went to hospital. This smashes claims that the police were all violent and that the hippies were all peaceful. However, many of the onlookers sided with the travellers, stating that the police acted overly violent, with 537 of the travellers getting arrested. This is the largest mass arrest since World War II, and possibly in English legal history. 2 years later, the Wiltshire police sergeant was found guilty of actual bodily harm as a consequence of injuries occurred by a member of the convoy during the Battle of Beanfield. In 1991, the travellers were awarded £24,000 in damages for false imprisonment, damage to property and wrongful arrest. The Battle of the Beanfield would lead to 2 important legislations. These are the Public Order Act of 1986 and later the Criminal Justice Act of 1994. This legislation made the travellers' way of life increasingly difficult to sustain. The 4-mile blockade was maintained after the arrest, as many more conflicts continued to take place with festival goers attempting to reach Stonehenge. This was made more complicated as the Druids also wanted to visit Stonehenge to worship. The Druid leader, Arthur Uther Pendragon, was arrested each and every summer solstice between 1985 and 1999 while trying to access Stonehenge. In 1988, 130 were arrested, while in 1989, 260. However, these were much less violent than the Battle of the Beanfield. In 1999, English Heritage granted access to the Druids to Stonehenge on religious grounds. However, this was rescinded when 200 New Age travellers broke into Stonehenge with them. This led to 15 years of turmoil until the restrictions were lifted by the House of Lords. Many festival goers rave, do drugs and leave tons of rubbish behind at Stonehenge to this day, while the Druids attend with them and peacefully worship. Be sure to check out my other channel, History Sticks, for the complete, longer and comprehensive video.